cigarette, and everybody share. And I didn't, they were share razor blade to shave and all kind of things like this. The food was so horrible. Within less than a month, I was so thin. When they finally released me, I went to my motorcycle. First of all, they tell me, it was a very complicated story, and I'll make it very short. They almost never release anybody, but I gave them a very good lie all the time. And the same lie, I remember it very well. Where I was, that it could not be me that was on the motorcycle. Probably somebody stole my motorcycle. It could not be me there. I was walking. But the stupidity of them was so much because I was working for the British government. They didn't even check if I was or not working at the time, or they didn't know. But anyhow, they believed my story. And when they sent another detective, I could speak English. So they were very happy they can talk to me in English, and they become friends. Another miracle was that the officer that arrested me loved French culture, and my folks spoke in French. So when he heard that they are speaking French, oh, they started to talk French, and he became very lenient towards me. He was in charge of my case. So he loved my folks speaking French, knew French culture. So from that side, he was lenient. From the other side, I misled them with these lies. And the third event that was very rare, I was supposed to be in a lineup so they can identify me, the people of the internal revenue, the income tax. I was supposed to stand behind the glass, and they will pass by and see if they recognize me. And at the time, the head of the income tax was waiting outside, and he seen my father, and they were best friends in Egypt 40 years earlier. And he said, "What are you doing here, Tzvi?" That my father number said. "My son is to be identified as a British, by the British." He said, "What?" He was this guy, the head of the income tax, was a very great supporter of the British. But he heard that the son of his best friend may be identified, so he brought all of his people together, and he told them, "We as Jews cannot identify and help the British." And everybody stood there with their mouth open because he was all the time. He wanted to do the best for his best friend. So here it is, they're passing the lineup, all of them, none of them wanted to recognize me. So these three things work together. My parents being befriended by the British officer, I lied to them very well, and then nobody wanted to identify me. And rarely a case like this happened, I was released. And when they told me, "Get out of here," I didn't know what I mean. They said, "Give me your hand." They told me near the gate. I said, "What do you want my hand?" I said, "Give it my hand." They gave me a stamp so I can go to the gate of the prison and show it. So I went to the gate and showed it to the officer, so he opened the door. And normally when they release you from prison, they'll put you in detention camp. Prison requires certain laws, but if the British, if they didn't have anything against you, they'll put you in detention camp. So I expected, like it's happened many times, an armored truck waiting for me and taking me from prison into detention camp, because then there was no laws working and they can do anything with me. And I did not see any British armored truck, so I started to go as fast as I can away. I thought maybe they made a mistake, forgot to send the police to get me. And I kept handkerchief on my hand because it was the only identification. And the British could stop me anytime, so I can show them I just came out of prison. So for a few days I couldn't wash my hand until I got my papers back, so I'd have my identification and so forth. So that's the way I kept my hand in handkerchief for a few days. But when I told you I wanted to go and get my motorcycle that they arrested me on, the food was so horrible I could not eat anything for a month. I could not start the motorcycle. At that time you had to jump on it to start it, kickstart. Not like today you push a button and the motorcycle stops. I was extremely weak. So I asked a British officer, if he can do me a favor and start the motorcycle for me, which he was very happy to do, and I rode it. But there was much more in this story that is simply unbelievable. It's just combination of things that I am amazed. But anyhow, it's in my book about my life in the Israeli underground. It was something that I wrote about 15 years ago for my family. I did not publish it, but I just gave it to my friends and family.
After the British left,
Okay, the war affected us very much. First of all, we were on rationing. We really had very little amount of food. Uh, I don't remember how many calories we got, but it was difficult to get food. It was difficult to get everything. And everybody have a, what do you call it, identity card. So if you have an identity card, you can go and get stamps that will tell you how much food you can get. And if you want to buy some meat, you give a stamp for that. If you want to buy some bread, you give a stamp for that. So during that time, I did not serve in the military because, as I mentioned to you, I was, all my underground, about 800 people, and later more, joined the military. But we got a release for a few people. And the release was that deferment, the military deferment, which means you don't have to serve now, but when the time comes, you will be able to serve. So I got a deferment, and I served in the Israeli, in my underground political party. At the time I joined a kibbutz, and I went to live near Gaza, where all the trouble are now there. It was within the Israeli territory. We did not live inside Gaza, but we lived within a few miles. And because we wanted to relieve the military was so busy with defending the country, so we, some of us, like myself, a civilian, wanted to serve in the Israeli border, so we can be both farmers and soldier in the same time. So when I was there, within 6 months, they killed 10% of us, 3 of my friends. Each one of them, that was, again, miracles. Each one of them ventured only once out of the barbed wire fence. And each one of them got killed immediately when they went out. Because we went to ambush, we went to other things. I was all the time on my motorcycle, in and out, and nothing happened to me. It's again like a miracle. Because one of the time, I came back to the kibbutz at night, and I stopped in another kibbutz and told me, don't go back to the kibbutz at night, and it's very dangerous. Remember, all your friends were killed there anytime they went out. And I said, no, it's okay. I had a pistol with only 3 bullets in it. It was a Webley, British, very powerful, because we did not have enough guns, so that's about all what I have. And I decided to walk at night, several miles from their kibbutz to our kibbutz. And you know what is a wadi? Wadi is a place that during the time most of the time there's no water, only during the winter some water. And all the area was like this, crisscrossed by wadis. That's how the Arabs could go in and out and infiltrate us. And nothing happened to me. By some miracle, nobody caught me. But when I came towards the kibbutz, it was late at night, I hid and I called and I told them, I want to come in, but I don't trust you. So I want to see everybody under the light with the gun pointing up, and then I'll come out. Because I knew that if they'll see me, the first thing they'll do is shoot me. So I wanted to be sure that they hear me. The guards, they all come, under the light, and they know that I'm coming and don't shoot me, because friendly fire, we had more than necessary. Because so many people were attacked, and we had enough friendly fire that people got shot and sometimes killed by mistake. So that's where I served in the kibbutz. And after the kibbutz, I served for a while in teaching new immigrants. We had a very large number of immigrants coming from Yemen. Yemen was an Arab country, still an Arab country, that there were a lot of Jews there living in extreme poverty. So we wanted to bring them to Israel, and we sent airplanes. There was some agreement that we can fly, get almost everybody in Yemen. There are only less than 50 people remaining in Yemen. But in 1949, roughly, we got them to Israel. And one of my duty was to teach them Hebrew, to teach them new life, because they're from extremely primitive culture. So just give you one story. My girlfriend was working there and I worked, and there was a very old man there, and he fell in love with my girlfriend, so he wanted to get her. So his son came to me and I said, I want you to go and talk to my father. And these old men, they all were living in tents when they came in. And he said, he wants to exchange a sheep or a goat for my girlfriend. That's the way the primitive culture. I said, what? He said, I want your girlfriend and I'm willing to give you a goat for her. And I said, hold it. I don't own it. I don't own her. She's a free lady. She does what she wants. I cannot buy and sell her. And they were amazed, how come I don't control her? Anyhow, that's the kind of people they were at the time, and they're very primitive. But of course, they are some of the best people in Israel now, and they grew up and modernize marvelously. But that was one of our duties, to integrate people from all over the world and bring them into the new country and teach them both Hebrew and a new culture, because they had no idea what's happening in modern country. So that's some of the things I did at the time. Any other question? By the way, I'll give you only one short story about what happened at that time. At that time, we had a lot of immigration. In the beginning, under the British, it was illegal immigration, because the British did not let us bring people. But the minute we were a free country, we were bringing as many people from Europe, from the concentration camp. One of the worst things that we had, it was such a very strong fight to liberate Jerusalem, that we had to send untrained new immigrants into the fighting. And many of them did not know anything and got killed by the hundreds. And that was the only way we could stop the Arabs from coming to Tel Aviv or taking Jerusalem, by sacrificing a large number of people that unfortunately did not have enough time to train them, because it was a break in the line and we had to send everybody there. So this was some of the things that we were facing at the time.
Can you just tell us some of your thoughts on what's on the current situation in Israel and what's happening today?
Yeah. One of the things that somebody asked me recently, and there is a magazine on the internet, it's called, on the web, Jewish magazine, and they wanted me to write them a summary of what happened now when I look back of the time that I was in the underground 60 years ago and today. I could not do it because he wanted it in a short time, and it's a very, very difficult thing, but I'll try to summarize it for you. When I was in the underground, when I joined at 15 and later and was in the military, I was in the Israeli Air Force, but that was in 1950. When I was in the Israeli Air Force and so forth, we never suspected that the war and the fighting will continue to that length of time. We were sure that after one war, another thing, eventually it will stop and will be a free country. There was no suspicion that the Arab would be so determined to wipe Israel out. We thought the same thing, Second World War, we, the United States, fought Germany and Japan, finished them, they made peace, everything like that. Nothing like this happened to be with the Arabs. They are extremely determined to wipe Israel out, and they are not willing to live in peace. The thing that is so amazing, the suffering for them is much more than the suffering for the Israelis. For them not to have peace, for them to live in the poverty, to them to live under Hamas leadership and others, they are fighting one another all the time and killing one another. Nothing to do with Israel. It's an agony that we cannot understand. But they'll rather do that than make peace with Israel. And it's very difficult to the Israeli to understand it. How can people, instead of living a good life and living in peace on their own land and so forth, because they have a tremendous amount of land. Where is the map here? Let me just show you. They are not in a small area. All of this area, the majority of the fertile area is Arab area, and here is Gaza. But this is the majority. It's a huge area, much bigger from a point of view of agricultural and so forth than the Israeli part. But they cannot live under peace for a variety of reasons that are too long to talk. There's too much involved. It's more important to them to hate. What happened in Iraq now is a thing that really scared Israeli terribly. The reason why they scare so